The Remnant Corporation's towering glass structure loomed over Lindsay Stone, its imposing presence radiating a sense of power and authority. She couldn't help but feel small and insignificant as she stood in front of the monolith, her heartbeat pounding in her chest in sync with the relentless rhythm of the city. The icy reflection of the building mirrored her apprehension, amplifying the nervous energy coursing through her veins. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for what lay ahead inside those formidable walls. "Here goes nothing," she murmured, her voice swept away by the biting wind whipping across her face. She thrust open the weighty doors with a surge of determination, her green eyes narrowed against the sterile brightness within. The lobby sprawled before her, an expanse of polished marble reflecting harsh fluorescent lights and chilly indifference. "Welcome to the Remnant Corporation," came a greeting from behind a pristine white desk. The receptionist's smile was as mechanical as it was cold, sending an involuntary shiver down Lindsay's spine. "Hello," Lindsay managed to reply, her voice wavering slightly. "I'm here for a memory implantation procedure." "Ah, yes," responded the receptionist, her fingers dancing over a holographic keyboard flickering in front of her. "Miss Stone, we've been expecting you. Please make yourself comfortable in our waiting area. Someone will assist you shortly." Lindsay nodded and crossed the glacial marble floor toward stark white chairs conveying emptiness and anticipation. As she sank into one of them, her gaze fell upon the Remnant Corporation logo on the wall, a shattered hourglass spilling its sands into oblivion. She stared at it pensively. Was this symbol going to unlock her forgotten past? Only time would tell. Her pulse quickened with anticipation and uncertainty. What would it feel like to have someone else's memories implanted into her brain? Would she too end up like that fractured hourglass on the wall? "Miss Stone," a voice cut through her thoughts, snapping Lindsay back into reality. A door swung open to reveal a smaller consultation room bathed in warm light, a stark contrast to the chill of the lobby. Dr. Amelia Hart stood at the entrance, her blue eyes radiating a warmth that softened her otherwise sharp features. There was an air of resilience about her that resonated with Lindsay. "Please, come in," Dr. Hart beckoned. Lindsay rose to her feet and followed the doctor into the room. Shelves of books lined the walls, a silent testament to Dr. Hart's intellectual prowess. The faint scent of lavender hung in the air, calming Lindsay's jittery nerves. "Have a seat." Dr. Hart gestured toward a comfortable chair across from her desk. "I understand you're here for the memory implantation procedure." Lindsay nodded as she sank into the seat. "Yes, I am." "Before we proceed," Dr. Hart began, her fingers interlocked on the desk in front of her, "I want to ensure you fully understand the process and its implications." Implications. The doctor's tone and the way she said the word sent an icy chill down Lindsay's spine. "I've given it a lot of thought," Lindsay replied, keeping her voice steady despite the storm raging within. "Indeed." Dr. Hart reclined in her plush chair, her gaze on Lindsay wavering between empathy and intrigue. "What do you anticipate this procedure will bring you, Miss Stone?" Silence hung in the air for a moment as Lindsay contemplated a response, her mind swirling. "I seek clarity," she finally confessed, locking eyes with Dr. Hart. "I need to comprehend who I used to be and discover who I might transform into." "Memory is an enigma," Dr. Hart pondered aloud, her gaze drifting away momentarily before snapping back to Lindsay. "It sculpts our identity, but can also lead us astray. Are you prepared to face the possibility that these implanted memories may not provide the insight you seek?" "Certainty is a luxury I can't afford," Lindsay retorted. "I won't let myself be defined by my circumstances any longer. I must unearth my past, no matter how harsh, to carve out a fresh path." "Well then," Dr. Hart exhaled, "we'll initiate preparations forthwith." "Thank you," Lindsay murmured, her heartbeat quickening with exhilaration and trepidation alike. This marked the dawn of her quest to recover her forgotten past. As Dr. Hart meticulously detailed the memory implantation process, an icy shiver trickled down Lindsay's spine. The doctor's words were sharp and detached, yet contradicted by the warmth radiating from her azure stare. "The procedure of memory implantation is intricate and demands considerable expertise," Dr. Hart remarked, her hands moving fluidly as she navigated through the complexities of the operation. "We'll infiltrate your neural pathways, slotting fabricated memories alongside your authentic ones, aiming for flawless integration to help you regain your identity." Lindsay's emerald eyes widened. Despite comprehending the enormity of the situation, her resolve remained unyielding. What are the risks? Side effects vary from slight disorientation to total cognitive collapse, Dr. Hart confessed. In some instances, patients have struggled to distinguish real memories from implanted ones. However, our success rate is encouraging, and we'll strive to mitigate potential complications. Lindsay nodded attentively, soaking in every word as if parched for knowledge. She understood that this was her singular shot at reclaiming her past and refused to let fear immobilize her. "I'm prepared," she affirmed, her voice steady and resolute. "Very well." With a solemn nod, Dr. Hart reached for a stack of papers on her desk and placed them in front of Lindsay. "Please scrutinize these before signing. They detail potential benefits and risks related to the procedure as well as your patient rights." The crisp white pages were filled with black ink, detailing every possible outcome and implication of the procedure. With a gentle gesture, she encouraged Lindsay to take the time to read through them carefully. Lindsay's fingers trembled ever so slightly as she gripped the icy pen, each stroke symbolizing pieces of her old life being shed in preparation for a new beginning. As she signed off on the last line, she exhaled shakily before handing back the documents. "We appreciate your trust in us with your memories, Miss Stone," Dr. Hart said softly. "We'll strive to assist you in finding the clarity you seek." With the heart pounding in her chest, Lindsay slowly pushed herself up from the chair. She felt a slight tremble in her legs, but she stood tall, ready to face whatever memories awaited her, even if they were painful or confusing. As she walked out of the consultation room, the gravity of the moment hit her. It wasn't just about uncovering her past, it was a bold step toward shaping her future. The corridor stretched out before her, its pristine white walls reflecting the harsh fluorescent lighting. Her mind raced with anticipation as she prepared to confront her demons head-on. Facing them was the only way to move forward and find some semblance of peace. Lindsay Stone hesitated at the threshold of the operating room, her hand pressed against the sterile white walls. The scent of disinfectant and antiseptic burned her nose, causing her to wrinkle it in discomfort. The harsh glare of fluorescent lights illuminated every inch of the room, casting everything in a cold, clinical hue. Her eyes were drawn to the center of the room, where a metal table sat like a looming predator, its surface shining with an almost menacing gleam. A chill ran down her spine as she took in the sight before her. One of the medical staff broke that silence, his voice a soft command. "Miss Stone, please make yourself comfortable." Lindsay nodded, her throat constricting as she tried to suppress the fear rising within her. Her body tensed against the cold surface of the metal table as she lay down, feeling vulnerable and exposed beneath the unrelenting glare of the overhead lights. Every blemish and imperfection on her skin was magnified in the harsh brightness, making her feel like an open book that anyone could read. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath, steeling herself for whatever was to come next. "Try to relax," Dr. Hart advised. "It's crucial for your procedure." "Relax," Lindsay whispered, biting back the doubts and fears that threatened to overwhelm her. With intense focus, Dr. Hart carefully demonstrated the placement of the electrodes on Lindsay's scalp, explaining their purpose in monitoring her brain activity during the upcoming procedure. Lindsay gripped onto every word with a desperate intensity, clinging to them like a lifeline amidst the whirlwind of thoughts and emotions swirling inside her. She felt her heart racing and her palms becoming sweaty as she attempted to absorb all the information being given to her. The medical team moved with robotic precision around her, each movement calculated and precise. Lindsay focused on taking slow breaths. She barely registered the chilly touch of electrodes on her skin or the low hum of machinery springing into life. "We'll administer a sedative now," Dr. Hart continued, now just another cog in the well-oiled machine. "When you awaken, we'll know if we have been successful." Lindsay mustered a shaky "thank you" as the needle pierced her skin and a cold sensation spread through her veins. Her limbs grew heavy, and she struggled to keep her eyes open before succumbing to the creeping numbness that overtook her body. "Sleep well, Miss Stone," was all she heard before darkness claimed her vision and consciousness slipped away from her grasp. Clad in darkness, Lindsay felt herself teetering on the edge between reality and the realm of memories. A voice, distant yet familiar, reached out to her from the abyss. Faces flickered before her like a reel of film, their expressions a kaleidoscope of human emotions. Sun-dappled meadows morphed into scenes of destructive explosions and terrified screams. Each scene slipped away as quickly as it appeared, leaving Lindsay disoriented and desperate for answers. From the shadows, a man's voice called out, straining with desperation. Lindsay concentrated, hoping to decipher his features, but all she could make out were vague motions and the glint of light reflecting from some unseen source. "Find me," the man urged before silence fell once again. Lindsay was left alone with her thoughts spiraling around one question: whose past was she witnessing? A command thundered through her mind, shaking her to the core. "Remember." The word hung in the air, a potent catalyst that sparked a fire within Lindsay. As she whispered it back into the void, she felt its power coursing through her, pulling her back toward consciousness and grounding her once again. The tendrils of drowsiness receded as she clung to the word, using it as an anchor to keep her mind from slipping away again. "Remember," she repeated as light pierced through the darkness that had consumed her, a beacon guiding her back home. "Recall." The command echoed in Lindsay's psyche, a lighthouse in the sea of oblivion. Gradually, her fragmented past merged, strands of her history interlacing into a complex mosaic. Joy. Lindsay was a child again, giggling with pure joy as she skipped through the park under the warm rays of the setting sun. Her long auburn hair bounced and swirled around her face as she twirled happily in the grass. Dread. A narrow, dimly lit back street was shrouded in a thick fog of decay and filth. The stench was overwhelming, assaulting her senses and making her heart pound against her ribcage. Lindsay felt the dampness seeping into her skin, the shadows reaching out and grabbing at her as she hurried through the alleyway. The distant wail of sirens sounded, adding to the already devastating sense of danger and desperation. She couldn't help but feel torn between wanting to run toward them for safety and wanting to flee in the opposite direction. The conflicting emotions only added to the chaos of the moment. Affection. Lindsay's trembling hand was enveloped by a powerful grip, sending electric shocks through her entire body. As she stood at the altar, her heart pounded with exhilaration and fear. The intense heat emanating from his body pressed against hers, causing her cheeks to burn with anticipation. With tear-filled eyes, they exchanged whispered vows of eternal love and unwavering loyalty. Desolation. Tears streamed down Lindsay's cheeks, leaving damp trails in their wake as she struggled to contain the overwhelming grief that seemed to consume her from within. She was overcome with a sense of dread, as if an icy hand had reached into her chest and left behind a vacuum of hopelessness. "Lindsay?" A tender voice beckoned her back from the abyss of recollection. "Can you hear me?" Jolting awake, Lindsay blinked open bleary eyes. The austere walls of the recovery room swam before her vision, a stark contrast to the vibrant world painted by her recently implanted memories. "Where am I?" she slurred out, disoriented. "You're at Remnant Corporation," replied a nurse soothingly, maintaining an air of professionalism despite Lindsay's confusion. "You've just undergone memory implantation." Did it work?" Lindsay queried hesitantly, while fragments from someone else's life whirled through her mind like puzzle pieces refusing to fit together. "Time will tell," answered the nurse enigmatically, with an almost imperceptible smile twitching at the corners of her mouth. Taking a shaky breath, Lindsay swung herself off the bed and onto wobbly legs. Determined, she vowed to decipher the alien memories regardless of what it took. The nurse steadied her with a gentle hand on her arm. "Take it slow," she advised. "Disorientation is expected after such a procedure." "Thank you," Lindsay murmured, as she took her first tentative steps into the unknown. The metal door groaned as it swung open, and a sliver of light pierced through the dimly lit recovery room. Dr. Amelia Hart strode in, her eyes a mix of relief and concern, their bright blue sparkling in the low light. She carefully shut the door behind her, minding its squeak. "The procedure was successful," Dr. Hart informed. "Your new memories have been implanted." Lindsay's gratitude was tinged with uncertainty as she attempted to focus on the scientist while wrestling with the disjointed images and sensations that felt both foreign and familiar. "Remember," Lindsay silently urged of herself, "I must unearth their hidden truths." Dr. Hart appreciated Lindsay's steadfast resolve but cautioned against pushing too hard. She reminded Lindsay of the fragility of the human mind, especially one recovering from such an invasive procedure. Lindsay nodded, her mind spinning with questions. Did Dr. Hart also struggle with the moral implications of manipulating memories? Was she burdened with the weight of altering lives forever? Lindsay couldn't help but wonder if their work was truly beneficial or if they were playing with fire. Dr. Hart, Lindsay began hesitantly, these new memories, will they change me completely? Will I still be me? While our past experiences shape us, Dr. Hart admitted, our core remains intact. Lindsay promised to make sense of the unfamiliar memories without allowing them to control her destiny. Dr. Hart nodded approvingly, but reiterated her warning about treating this journey with caution due to the fragile nature of the human psyche. Lindsay thanked Dr. Hart again for giving her a second chance in life, aware that her journey was just beginning. Remember, she pledged to herself, she would not rest until the truth was laid bare. The wind's icy bite tugged at Lindsay's auburn locks as she emerged from the fortress known as Remnant Corporation, her heart hammering a rhythm of newfound resolve. A riot of sound assaulted her senses, the discordant melody of blaring car horns and raucous voices merging with the relentless rhythm of countless footfalls. Towering skyscrapers pierced the heavens above, their lofty heights casting elongated specters over the teeming thoroughfares below. The atmosphere was thick, laden with a peculiar cocktail of acrid exhaust fumes and enticing aromas from street food vendors that tingled in her nostrils, stirring an odd familiarity in their wake. Poised on the sidewalk's precipice, Lindsay found herself immersed in an unending tide of faces and vehicles. Beyond the imposing walls of Remnant Corporation, life unfurled in a vast panorama that overwhelmed her senses, yet ignited an exhilarating pulse in her heart. "Goodbye, Miss Stone," the receptionist said, her voice filled with what seemed like genuine empathy. "Look after yourself." "I will," Lindsay declared, bracing herself against the wind's onslaught. As she distanced herself from the monolithic structure, Dr. Hart's cautionary words echoed in her mind. Tread carefully. Navigating through the maze of her modified memories would demand both patience and prudence. "One step at a time," Lindsay muttered under her breath, reinforcing her resolution. Unearthing the truth behind the implanted recollections was crucial, but surrendering herself entirely to them was not an option. The streets vibrated with life and movement. People scurried along, their gazes vacant, each one bearing their unique load of secrets and grief. Lindsay found herself wondering how many among them had sought refuge in memory implantation as she had. "Watch out!" A young girl whizzed past on a bike, narrowly missing Lindsay. "Children," Lindsay reflected, feeling an unexpected warmth seep into her heart. Visions of giggles, scraped knees, and bedtime tales danced in her mind, cherished memories that were perhaps borrowed but nonetheless precious. "Focus," she reminded herself sharply. Sentimentality could wait. Truth-seeking required undivided attention. "Latest news from Remnant Corporation," bellowed a newspaper hawker, dramatically waving his wares around. "Discover your forgotten past." "Get your papers here," another echoed, his voice raspy from shouting. "Memory implantation, the passport to our lost world." "Is it?" Lindsay mused skeptically. Could these implanted memories genuinely revive a bygone era, or were they merely a deception crafted to pacify the populace? "Excuse me," Lindsay queried a passing woman. "Do you trust Remnant Corporation?" "Trust?" The woman scoffed, her laughter bitter. "I guess so. We all need something to cling on to amidst this pandemonium." "True," Lindsay agreed, her resolve further crystallizing. She vowed not to rest until she unraveled her manufactured past. As the sky turned a deep shade of purple, Lindsay continued her trek through the city's crowded streets. Her feet carried her with purpose, fueled by an unrelenting hunger for answers. She pushed through throngs of people, dodged cars and bicycles, and refused to let the chaos of the city slow her down in her quest for truth. "I will remember," she swore, the promise reverberating through her altered consciousness. Regardless of the hurdles or risks involved, Lindsay was determined to uncover the truth veiled within her manipulated memories, and perhaps amidst this shattered world's chaos discover who she truly was. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. See you next time. Thank you for watching.